Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Hi, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
A couple of weeks ago, I wrote an article in the blog on our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. We have a blog on there. You should log in to get full access to everything that we're putting on our website. But I did put an article on there where I talked about the new normal and sort of said, have we done it? Have we finally reached the normal? Something I believe we have. I think that this, I think for a period of time at least, this is what the world is going to be. We're going to be, making individual decisions about what makes us feel safe and independent or not, or we're just going to be making our individual COVID-related decisions, and everyone deciding they're on their own about things like vaccinations and masking, and there'll be a lot less government in it. And I think that our early childhood programs have pretty much reached the place where we have to stop saying, okay, let's wait till we hit the new normal and just start functioning again. So in this article, I gave some information, I posed some questions, and in there I said, these are the things that are swirling around my head, and maybe you'll hear some of them in future episodes. So here we are with one of the questions that was basically swirling in my head, having to do with going back to good practices for documenting children's progress and development so that we can write really high quality, meaningful lesson plans based on what we've observed. Before the pandemic, there was a big push for this in the early childhood world, because it really is the best way to write plans for young children, to be observing them, taking notes, figuring out where they are in progressions of learning, what are the next steps that you need to practice, and having everything be goal-based. We're supposed to be goal-based, not task-based.
Yes.
It isn't about gluing the penguin together. It's about things like fine motor skills, thinking and cognitive skills, social emotional skills, physical skills, and the tasks are just a means to a goal. We've said that in the past. Right. And the way that we understand how to take each individual child on their path toward a goal is through documenting their progress. It's also how we communicate with families to say, here's the documentation, and that documentation can be a variety of things. It can include notes that you take. It can include photos, videos, audio recordings, children's work samples, checklists, charts, graphs. There can be a lot of documentation, right? Understanding that documenting this progress is of extreme importance in the education of young children. I would like to sort of, oppose that statement or challenge that statement with the times, because in my experience, the first thing that fell away when things got challenging was this documenting of children's progress. And it seems to me to be the last thing coming back.
Yeah, I think people got used to not doing it, and it's hard to get back in the swing of doing that when you're so used to not doing it. But there's also a lot of mitigating factors. There's a lot of factors.
This has become, in my professional world, a frequent conversation at all levels. I have teachers saying they want me to do this documentation again, and I can't do it with how short-staffed we are, and I don't have time. And I have to tell you, I totally hear you, people. I hear you. I get it. I hear you. I understand how that would be the case. I also have administrators coming to me saying, I need to get these people to document again. And I say to them, well, what are the obstacles? And they say time and being short-staffed seem to be the obstacles for everybody. They're just not doing it. I've heard so many administrators say they're just not doing it. And in recent weeks, I've had people who hire me to do professional development, which includes things like quality rating and improvement systems across the United States, resource and referral agencies in different states, the sorts of quality measure entities in early childhood who hire me to do professional development are coming to me and saying things like, you have to help me get them to do observation and assessment again and documentations of children's learning. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that if they have had professional development, let me clarify that. If they have had professional development about this, if they have had learning sessions about this, if it's something they already know, they haven't unlearned that knowing.
No,
they have been presented with challenges that are obstacles that are standing in their way.
Yes.
Right.
There's so much being put on the plate of a teacher, more and more stuff, that now you're adding in another thing that they used to have on their plate but had to take away for a little while. But you haven't taken away these other things that you gave them, so they still have no time.
Okay, but why was it taken away? It wasn't taken away because it was a good practice. It wasn't a good practice. No. It was taken away because you were physically not with the children. That's why it was taken away. If we look 2 years ago, you were physically not with these children. People were on lockdown. They were saying to me, I can't do observations like this. I said, agreed. You have to ask the families what they're doing. You have to try and see it on Zoom. You have to, agreed. But then once we're in person again, why didn't it pick back up? Because short-staffed, because time, because of all these things that are still going to be an issue. The short-staffed situation, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that that's going away so quickly. I think that's going to stay for a while at least.
It's going to stay for quite a while.
Right? That's going to stay.
But they need to figure that out then. But I also feel like some of those things that were put on the plate, like when we first got back together, we were still doing part in person, part hybrid kind of thing. So you didn't take that part off. So it was still like you had some kids that you couldn't really observe because they were still home, and you had these kids that were here that you could, but then the time that you would do the documentation or the observation with those children had to be dedicated to like, okay, I need to make online lesson plans that are separate from these, you know what I mean? So like, and I don't know, maybe in some places it's still like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
Okay. But that's a lot to add on to somebody's plate, and it might not have been fully taken off in some instances. I don't know, but like
also, but you know what I know has not been taken off of many plates, and I think it's good it hasn't been taken off of many plates. Teachers in many programs and settings are required now to use apps to reach out to families every day on a consistent basis. This was a good thing that came from the pandemic. I do think that should stay. I think it should stay. We can't take
time consuming.
Okay, but family engagement and partnership is an equal concern to working directly with the children.
Yes.
Observation, documentation, and assessment of children's progress in an ongoing way is a very important thing to get back in our practices. But what's the reality of getting it back in our practices? I've said to administrators, I've said to people who hire me for professional development, and I'm talking about multiple people. If you've said things to me about this and I've responded to you, it's not just you. If you're listening to me, it's not just you. This is universal in multiple states. I also have said to teachers, what are the obstacles? This is always my question. What are the obstacles? I get the same two answers back all the time. Basically, we're short-staffed. And I don't have time. And part of the time also now, let's remember, part of the time teachers spending has to do with giving the children more social emotional support than they needed in the past, because they didn't have the same sort of interactions. So it's not just the children who've been impacted, it's the teachers teaching them, and the like school day has been impacted by all this.
School day is a little different too. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much. And we have to go back to doing this. So how do we do that? And I've given this so much thought since the 2 weeks ago when I wrote this blog article, and over the past several weeks of just endlessly hearing about this and talking to teachers about it. There are two things that I think we need to think about. Like I said, short-staffed, that's beyond everybody's control. It's not for lack of trying to hire people. It's not, and I've had so many teachers say, I know they're trying, but the short-staffed thing is, so, we're not going to necessarily be able to get more staff in our settings if they are not available. However, if they are available, if people are available, we have to allocate funds for paying people to cover times of day, to allow teachers to do this. In public schools, teachers, generally speaking, have prep periods. In privately run programs for young children, a lot of them don't have prep time.
Yeah.
And if they do have prep time, it's often before the students arrive. So they're busy setting up and getting everything ready for the day.
It's usually to set up, and it's usually to take down at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it's to take down, to clean up. And also, by the way, you're usually there with several children who have not been picked up yet.
Yeah, that's true.
During what is allegedly your prep time.
Yeah.
I also work with a number of programs who've had to do things because of the situation of being short-staffed, who have had to do things like say to staff members, you know what, if you eat lunch in the room with the children, I'll let you go home early today. That's right. So then that prep period becomes go home early, or I'll let you come in late tomorrow, like right before class starts, we have someone opening. And which I think are wonderful things to offer to the teachers if you have no choice, right? If you have to say, I need your body in this classroom during rest time or during nap, if you'll eat here, then what I'll do is compensate you in this way. That's great. Keep doing that. But here's the thing. We have to figure out a way where there is enough funding for either teachers to be paid for more work time, not asking them to do this on their own at home on their computer, but that's how they're doing it. Teachers,
I know.
I'm sorry, but teachers who are doing this have told me that's how they're doing it. And I know all teachers work in their own time. I taught for a long time. I worked.
Have to.
All right. But I did because it's part of the job, Allison. Part of the job is I'm going to be home. It is. Part of the job is when I'm home, I'm going to be I used to sit at home sometimes, prepping, cutting, whatever I was doing. I'd be sitting on my living room floor getting stuff ready for the next day. I think the majority of teachers do things at home, and
they have no choice to, but they have to because they don't get time. They don't get time and they don't get paid for it.
They don't get time,
but to do it. But they shouldn't have to.
Okay. Also, I would like to say this. I wanted to go home. I could have stayed in my classroom longer if I wanted, but I wanted to go home. So it was really partially my option to say, okay, I'm just going to take this home and prep it and whatever. I want to go home. And I had children at home. That's another reality. I had children at home. So am I going to stay in my classroom longer to get this done, even if you were going to pay me? No, I would say to them, you know what, I'm going to take this home. My kids are home. I have to get home. There's a lot of reasons why people go home and do the work at home. But teachers need the option for something like documentation, which isn't a quick sit on my living room floor and fold some paper or file some paper. It's not that. They need time in front of the computers in their classrooms. That time should be paid. And we have to figure out ways to do that, whether it's through the public funding that we have now learned is somewhat available, right? Through the public funding that can be provided, through the funding, there's supposed to be so much more funding being sent for early childhood overall, public and private. Well, I think some of that should be required to be allocated for extra time for teachers to be doing things like documentation and assessment. It really needs to be specific like that, though. It
should be.
It shouldn't be pre-cutting crafts, though.
What's gonna happen? Yeah, that's
it shouldn't be like here's money, great, we're gonna pay you for an extra half hour, great, I'm gonna pre-cut some crafts. It should be every day or every X amount of days you are required and paid to do this amount of time of documentation and assessment, and it should be earmarked in the grants or the money or whatever you're getting to say this much money in your budget based on this publicly funded money needs to be set aside for documentation and assessment of students' progress because that matters.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be prep time paid for. Also, we need to be thinking, I think, in budgets about priorities. Again, I was definitely, like many of our preschool peeps are, I was definitely somebody who bought things on my own, sometimes submitted receipts, sometimes didn't.
to. You shouldn't have to.
Everybody does
You
it.
Shouldn't have to.
And I did it because I wanted to do it and because I could. Because I would find something and go, you know what? I'm not worrying about, I think this is awesome for my students and I'm not worrying about the money.
I do it, but
Yep.
you shouldn't have to. Okay.
But you do, and it's part of
part
of the landscape, Allison. So if that's part of the landscape, here's another thing.
Yeah.
If we're looking at purchases, I think we need to look at this too. What are the teachers purchasing and how can I get that cheaper in bulk, joining and doing shared resources with other people? How can I reallocate the budget in a way where money can be allocated for things in a way where I'm not reimbursing top dollar to Cindy for what she's bought at the top dollar store?
Right, because you can go on teacher or at least in public school, their websites and you get a major discounts on things. But if I go and buy it on my own, it's double the price a lot of times, but
as a teacher, I bought it where it was convenient for me.
Right. Yeah.
As a program, a lot of programs have access to less expensive things.
Yes.
Also, at what point, honestly, do we say to people, this is reimbursable, this is not, make your own decisions? And I think we have to do that too. And think about, if you want me to be able to pay you for this time to do the observation and assessment, here's a budget. I think you give teachers a budget maybe and say, here's your budget for the year for buying things. Mm-hmm. Anything beyond this budget is on you. Right. But you have to be willing to have space in the overall program budget to say, I also have a large budget or a larger budget where I can order things maybe alongside another program so that we can get a bulk discount. I think what I'm trying to say is that early childhood programs need to band together to get bulk discounts for things so that you can save money in your budget that can go toward paying people extra time to do this. I think it ultimately comes down to they can't get it done during the school day. You're short-staffed. They're going to have to do it beyond the hours of your school day. They should be paid for that. We need to figure out the funding.
But should you also be asking teachers to spend an extra hour on top of the hours they already worked to do that? Shouldn't it be in the day that they already are scheduled to work? Because then say you now like, okay, we'll pay you from 4 to 5. And now, like, this teacher's not going to get home until 5:30, 6 o'clock, and that's not fair either.
But how are they going to do that if they're short-staffed?
I know. I'm just saying it's not. That's also not fair to take away teachers' time.
So what's the solution then if they don't have staff?
Maybe they do it during their lunch. They'd have to give up lunch, but then they'd still get to go home at the end of the day. I don't know. Either way, it's not fair to take away their time either. You know what I mean?
I know so many professionals not getting lunch now. They're staying because they are needed for the ratios.
I know, but then is it fair to say they have to stay an extra hour to do documentation either? Is that fair?
Well, if teachers are saying, I don't have the time, and then we say to you, we'll pay you for the time. And then you say, well, I don't want to spend the time. I can't spend the time. Then,
well, you're taking them away from their families and their personal time.
So then do we say to them, for the people who are doing it and doing it at home, do we say to them, track your hours?
Yeah, we'll pay you from home.
We'll pay you for the time that you've done it, right? Track your time, please.
Yes.
Submit a time card, submit a report
or whatever. Yeah.
And here's how much time I can pay you for. We have to be realistic. We can't say to people, go home and do it, and they come back with 20 hours. You have to say to people, I'll
pay you for
up to this many hours if you end up doing it at home. You can
budget it. Yeah. Then you also have to show the work that you did at home. You can't say, I worked at home.
Well, they can usually, if they're using a program on a computer, administrators can see it.
Right?
Administrators can see it. There's no easy fix to this for sure. Do I agree that there's a lot of things that teachers shouldn't have to do? Absolutely, but we do it because that's the gig. That's how the world has functioned.
The only way it will change is if you stop doing it.
Okay, but then who suffers, Allison? The children.
If you stop doing it, then all these contracts and all this stuff will change.
Well, you're talking about public school. I'm talking about private. And who?
I'm talking about all of it.
But who suffers? If I don't do those things, who suffers? The children. That's not what I'm here for. So it's not, the administrative suffering, much as I love y'all, that's not my perspective. My perspective is who struggles if I don't do that? The children. So I'm going to do that because my devotion is to the children. And so I'm going to continue to do it. I would not suddenly go, I'm not going to do this anymore and just let that fall by the waysides for the children. I do, however, hear the teachers when they're saying time. And I wonder if we're talking a way to compensate you for your time that would, I don't know. And if they're saying to me time, it's very possible that there is no time in the day.
Yeah.
Means we have to really think about the other things we're asking them to do. Do they need to send app messages to families every single day? I think it would be a beautiful, wonderful thing. If documentation and assessment is falling by the waysides because they're documenting every single day for families, then maybe we need to rethink that.
Right. Maybe it doesn't need to be every day. If they miss one day of that,
or 2 days even.
Or 2 days to document what, you know what I mean? Maybe that would be a good balance. I don't know.
I think we have to look at that.
Wonderful in an ideal world to be able to do it every day, but this is not, we're not quite there yet in the ideal world. So like,
I think we have to look at that sort of thing. Is it necessary that every day they spend X amount of time putting together the messages to families? Maybe it should be, we're going to send messages to families every, I don't know, Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah.
Right. Or Monday, Wednesday, or,
figure out what's best for you and do it that way. Yeah.
Right.
Or what's best for your families, even,
Right. Should it be, do we look at things like, what else are teachers doing that could be done? I don't know. Maybe we throw it out to the preschool peeps, folks.
Yeah.
What are part of your responsibilities that you have to do all the time that you feel like if this was cut back a little bit, I could do the documentation and assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I'm not talking about essentials like lesson planning. So if this was cut back,
because there's things I would give up, but I can't. It's part of
here's one. Here's one. Ready? Can we give up on like the extravagant holiday shows and graduations and the practices that go into them and allow teachers to document children's learning?
Please see previous episodes, guys.
See prior talk about this. Preschool peeps, here's what I'm asking you to do. Go to our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. Find our Facebook page. Send us contact forms and messages telling us what you feel like could be cut out of your day so that you could do this high quality documentation and assessment and plan like you should be for the children based on what you've observed. And let us know what you think can kind of be fallen off the way to the side or reduced. And we may talk about it on a future episode. If you send that to us, please let us know if we have permission to use your name, your location, whatever we have permission to use.
Yeah.
On the podcast.
And then you'll hear your name or whatever on here.
Right. And I think you can see from this episode that it's a very debated hot topic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, preschool peeps, I want you to go to your computers, take a minute, send us that message, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, peeps.